Hey, this is Victor Antonio, and welcome to the 24 Hours of Entrepreneurship Digital Summit. Before I get started, big shout out to Trevor Otts, man. Thank you for the invitation. Again, the name is Victor Antonio. If you don't know me, just Google me. Just go Victor Antonio. You'll find information on me. Now, today I want to talk about, the business blueprint for selling, because you can have the best product in the world, the best service in the world, but if you can't sell it, doesn't matter. And so what I want to do is just give you a blueprint, especially if you're an entrepreneur right now, you're thinking of an idea, right? If you're kind of next phase of entrepreneur is that now you have the product or service ready to go and you're ready to launch, but you just don't know where to start. Or maybe you're that entrepreneur who started already, things are getting going, but you don't seem to be able to close enough deals. So that's why you're here. I'm glad you're joining me. I'm going to walk you through a process. My background in sales is as follows. My background is I have an electrical engineering degree and an MBA. So I started out as an engineer first. Then I started selling telecommunications equipment like high-end, big systems, complex sales. And then after that, I realized that being an engineer, you make only so much money. But then I realized if you go into sales, then you'll make a lot of money. So I started out as an account manager, regional manager, director, VP of sales, and eventually president of sales and marketing for a $420 million company. I've taken markets as small as $14 million and grown them to, let's say, $98 million in annual revenue, in one case in less than 3 years. So my job is to really try to help you formulate a strategy so you can sell more effectively. And it all begins with the game plan. So I got some notes here because I don't want to forget. I got great stuff to share with you. And I like to go fast. I like to chop through things. So not a lot of fluff, a lot of content. So you're probably going to get a copy of the video, but if you don't, you might want to take some notes. Let's begin with the what. And I'm going to start out very basic, but I promise you I will accelerate very quickly and you'll enjoy it. By the way, I'm also the founder of that right there, the Sales Velocity Academy. The Sales Velocity Academy, I think, is probably one of the most comprehensive sales training platforms online. So check it out, Sales Velocity Academy, and I put a discount code down there, give you a little discount on behalf of Trevor. Anyway, let's get going. Let's begin with the what, right? So let's start with the what. And the what is, what are you selling? What are you selling? Okay, let's just start very basic. And again, I will accelerate and go very quickly. So let's begin with the what. What are you selling? So in this case, I want to talk about this. You are selling a product. Okay, you have a certain product, right? And you're trying to sell it to a certain client, right? But you also have a lot of what? Competition. With me so far? Competition. And you also got to focus on your clients in the market. So this is going to be important for us to discuss down the road. And I want you to get this model in your head because this is an important model. Here's why. If you have a product, you know you're going to have competitors in the market. This is the client you're trying to serve. Now, how we present, how we pitch, how we lay it out to the customer, the value depends on your messaging, which we'll talk about later. But let me set it up right now. If you're right here, this means you're at a disadvantage. Disadvantage, right? What does that mean? The competitor has it, the client wants it, but you don't have it. So that's a disadvantage. Now, right here in the middle, if you think about this, at this intersection of all three, that is known as parity. What does that mean? That you have it, the competitor has it, and the client wants it, so there's no real advantage there. Where we want to be is somewhere right here, and let me just change colors for this one. Where we want to be is right here. Because right here, this little area, right there, that means your product has something your client wants, but your competitor doesn't have. And it is the ability to, let's just pull that triangle out. We're going to create messages, 3 messages around that little triangle, and that's going to be your differentiation. So in other words, if I can figure out how my product offers something that the competitor doesn't have and that my client wants, then that becomes the messaging towards the market. So again, keep that in mind as we move through this. So now we know what the what is. You know what your product is. I don't need to tell you. You need to know your product. You need to know your competitors. You need to know the market your clients are playing in. So when you're talking to a client, you can be effective. Now, this works in B2B or B2C. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to get into that next. So now let's talk about who, right? Here's the what. Know your product, which I'm sure you do. Know who your competitors are, which you should know, and know who your client is, right? But who is that client? So now let's move from the what your product is, because that's your domain. Now let's move over to the who. The who is interesting because Who are you selling to? This is an important thing, is who do you sell to? And so let's break this out. I like to kind of keep things simple. I can make it complicated, but let's keep it simple, right? When we look at the market, we typically know we have a B2C market, right? Business to consumer. In other words, you're a business selling to an end consumer. Then we also have B2B, which means you're a business selling to another business. Now, I know some of you know this already, just covering some baseline here, right? Let me just do this right now. So, when you're looking at B2C, let's start here. What you're really concerned about is who you're selling to. And the sooner you can define that, the more effective you'll be in closing and selling. Again, I'm just teeing it up right now, so just hang in there with me, okay? B2C, which means you should be concerned with demographics. We'll talk about that just in a little bit. And if you're selling B2B, you should be concerned about firmographics. Sounds complicated, but it really isn't. So let's walk through this. An ideal client has a certain demographic, and our job is to figure out what some of those are. So I listed a couple of things, just so I wouldn't forget. Let's say that you're selling pools. Okay, I'm making stuff up. You're selling a pool, any type of service, whatever you're selling, doesn't matter. The first thing I might want to know is the person or the couple married, right? If I'm a real estate person, that's always interesting to know. Do they have kids? Why does that matter? Well, if you're selling pools, it matters. If you want to put kids in a good school district and you're a real estate agent, that matters, right? And then we talk about, let's just say, type of job they have, occupation, type of job, what type of job do they have, number of years in the house, right? Is it a new house? Because if it's a new house, then maybe that's when they want to put in a pool. If it's a new house, they just moved into the neighborhood, so maybe there's some other services I can sell them. But I'm also trying to understand who they really are. I can look at their income level. What's their income level, right? Sometimes I can kind of guess that. Maybe if I can't guess the income level, if I go on LinkedIn, for example, maybe I can figure out what their titles are. In other words, if they're VPs working for a large company or maybe not VPs, I get some idea of who they are. So by having some of these data points, you begin to define who your ideal client is. So for example, let's say you're in network marketing and you're selling pills, powders, or potions, right? Something simple B2C. Well, then you have to ask yourself, who's your ideal client? Let's say that these pills, potions, or powders are really for people who maybe want to lose weight. That's a simple one, right? Well, then we kind of know who the demographics is. We actually have two demographics, right? One demographic may be somebody who wants to lose weight. The other demographic could be somebody who wants to maintain their weight. They're in good shape. But maybe a third demographic could be somebody who's looking to get into network marketing because they want to generate some income. So one could be about health, it could be about weight, but it also could be about wealth. In other words, they want to make money. And the more you can define what that profile looks like, because that's all this is, it's a profile. And after a while, you begin to see these common profiles who always buy. So if you're doing network marketing and you realize, every time I do network marketing, it's usually a married couple where only one person is working in the household. And in many cases, the person that's staying home, husband or wife, is typically the person that's mostly interested in doing network marketing. I've also discovered that somebody who stays home, again, married, one stays home, they're taking care of kids, that's another good indication that they're more a good candidate. I also realized that people who care about their health, maybe because, again, they're overweight, they want to maintain their weight, whatever it may be, are also good candidates. So you begin to draw this picture. A friend of mine, Jeff Kozer, calls it a zebra, a horse of particular stripes. Basically, when you identify your zebra, basically who you're selling to, you become more effective because if you sell to the right people, you'll close easier, and isn't that what we want? Now let's go over to firmographics. This is the B2B. On the B2B side, it could be, we can look at the company that says how many years in business, right? Years in business. We can look at number of employees. We can look at revenues per year. We can look at if they're public or private. Sorry that I'm not writing all these out, but you get it, right? So we can begin to define. We look at what market they're in, what industry are they in, and we can begin to identify which type of companies. They're a certain industry, certain market niche. They're so big, they have so many annual revenues. Maybe they have multiple locations. Maybe we're more successful when we sell to B2B companies that have multiple locations. Again, you begin to define your zebra. You get the idea? Great. Again, I go fast because I like to go, keep it moving, and give you the content. So now, what am I selling? Who am I selling it to? Now, let's move into the how. Oh, it gets interesting now. because the how piece is how do we generate the business, right? When I started out in the speaking/consulting business, right? I do a lot of public speaking. If you haven't seen me again online, just go victorantonio.com or just type in Victor Antonio. And I literally have spoken around the world, with the exception of Greenland, probably in Antarctica. But I've traveled around the world, and I started out as a speaker, and that was what I was selling, my services and speaking. And I had to learn how to find the right client. So now, let's talk about how do we find these people, right? So in other words, what I'm really talking to you about is lead generation or prospecting. Now, in the Sales Velocity Academy, I have courses that cover all this stuff in great detail. So for example, I'm gonna give you an overview right now of prospecting, but I have a course on prospecting, a course on cold calling, and so forth and so on, even on presentation pitches, everything. So let's talk about how you're gonna contact them. So let's define terms. I like to define terms. When we talk about lead generations, there's two ways to get customers into your pipeline. Pipeline means, somewhere in a position to want to buy from you. So there's two strategies. There's outbound. In other words, there's an outbound strategy for marketing, and then there's an inbound strategy for marketing, right? That's the inbound. And again, other speakers are probably going to cover this in more detail. I just want to give you the framework if you haven't gotten it yet. Outbound means what? It means cold calling, right? Picking up the phone and making call, dialing for dollars, as they say. You can also do email cold calling, right? You can do that. You can connect with people on social media and then reach out to them, right? You can create some type of what we call a cadence. And all these are going to require some type of scripting, right? By scripting, I mean, don't just cold call somebody without knowing what you're going to say. In fact, in one of my programs on prospecting, I talk about how I actually show you how to write out scripts, what to say, how to position your value. So when you get the voicemail, which you most likely will the first time, what message do you leave? And then how long should you wait before you call again? And then when you call the second time, what other message should you leave? And then when should you call again? And what third message should you leave? And when should you stop calling? And then how do you handle that? So keep in mind that cold calling is outbound. The great thing about outbound, this is the highlight here, is that when you outbound, you control who you're calling. So these leads, I'll put this here in red, I'll just say these leads are qualified because you've already identified them in the previous one. Remember this one right here? You already know who you're calling, so now you're just reaching out to them. So they're qualified because you know what you're looking for. You know who your zebra is, right? Now, the other strategy, one that I love to use, is inbound. And inbound is all about how do we get customers to come to us. It's a powerful strategy because if I can create that gravitational force to get them to come to me, then this is good. So on the inbound stuff, again, I use different strategies, and the one I use the most is content creation. Like, I love creating content. On YouTube, I have a channel on YouTube called the Sales Influence Podcast. The YouTube channel, I have over 1,100 videos. That's right, 1,100 videos. And I actually have more than that. That's in addition to my Sales Velocity Academy. And so I create content. I create graphics. I create videos. I create images. And again, all this content is meant to what? Somebody sees the video, sees my content, says, who is this guy? In your case, they see the product, they see the promotion, they go, what is this, right? It's like when you scroll through Instagram, you see all these shop now promos of products that people are selling online. These are content creators, so that's one way of doing it. It could be articles, it could be blogs, it could be whatever it is. You have to determine what is your strong suit. For example, for me, I don't like writing articles. There's nothing wrong with them. I know many people who are super successful writing articles. I have one friend. I know that he does well writing articles, but he hates doing videos. Me, I love doing videos. I hate writing articles. You have to figure out how you like to create content. And again, be genuine. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself, because if you do, you're not going to continue it. What's going to happen is you're going to do a couple of them, and then you're going to stop. So figure out what your flow is and how you like to market yourself. The other way to drive content to your website is to do SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, which means you optimize your websites or even your videos. If you tag your videos correctly, if you tag your articles correctly, you use the right keywords, the search engines will basically come out, find it, and again, draws traffic to those articles, those videos, those images, and that traffic leads back to your website, because that's the objective, isn't it? When you're pulling people in on the inbound, where are we sending them to? We typically want them to come back to our website. So keep that in mind. Search engine optimization. Now, this is a slower route because you have to wait for the search engine spiders to find you. But if you want to just hit the ground running, start promoting your product, then you can use, and you're probably familiar with this, a pay-per-click strategy. A pay-per-click strategy means that you're going to put in a little promotion. You've seen them out when you go to Google. Off to the right-hand side, you'll see some advertisement. Or typically they put them at the top, or at the banner, you'll see sponsored ads, right? That's pay-per-click. And every time you click on that, somebody's paying something for that. So what you would do is choose your keywords and pay for them and create a monthly budget for that. Again, other people will talk about that. I just want to highlight right here. The third strategy I think is old school, but I got to mention it, ads, TV, radio, believe it or not, they still exist. I mean, the future is here. And in the future, what we're seeing right now is that you're going to be able to do billboards. I mean, think about this technology that's coming. Most people don't even know this. You're going to be able to pick up your phone, your app, scroll through it, design a graphic, and actually post it on a billboard in your neighborhood. That's what the future brings. But anyway, back to this. So the downside of inbound is your marketing in general. You're not in control of who visits your websites. So in other words, the people that arrive are sometimes unqualified. In other words, they don't meet your criteria. They're not your zebras. So our job is to actually qualify these people. So here, outbound, the advantage is you decide who you want to talk to. The tough part is the connection rate. Typically, it takes about 7 to 15 calls, depending on which study you believe, to actually connect with somebody. So this is a tougher slog. On the inbound side, again, it's easy to draw people. I should say it's easy. It takes some effort, but you can draw people to your website in great amounts, but they're not qualified, which means now you have to qualify them. Now, this is important. You need to have a qualification process that is part of your sales process. Now we're moving into sales. We got the basics out of the way. Let's move into sales. So let's kind of give you a visual, because I want to give you this visual. So when you have people coming to your website, let me just do the inbound. Here's a funnel, the famous sales funnel, right? And what happens is you have people coming in through social media, right? Maybe you ran an ad. You did some pay-per-click, right? You optimize your website, say the search engine. So traffic is coming here. People are coming to visit your site, and maybe they're going to fill out that contact form, right? So up here, we call these suspects, right? Because we don't know who they are yet, so they're suspect. And we have to qualify them. And so let's say that somebody comes to the website, fills out a contact form. Hey, ran across your product, really love your stuff, really love to talk to you about your service, blah, 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 blah. Well, now you're going to reach out and talk to them. And this conversation, here's where you're going to qualify these people. And then if they passed a qualification test, you can call them an official prospect, okay? And that's how it typically works. But most people, and again, I'll highlight this one, give it a nice little yellow here. Most people don't qualify. They're afraid to qualify. See, I love qualifying because I don't want to waste my time with people who don't want to buy my product or can't afford my product. That sounds hard, but you have to become like that, right? You have to be very tough. All right, moving on. Now, let's say that now we're having the conversation. We have them in. They came in through a funnel, right? You qualified them. Well, now you know that they meet the criteria, right? And you sense that they have the budget, they understand what your service or product costs, and they're willing to listen to you. Now it's presentation time. Now it's the pitch. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you the why, because you're going to give them a big, let me change the color here. You're going to give them a big why buy. In other words, that's what you have to sell them on. You have to sell them on the why buy. We talked about the what, the who, the how, now we do the why. Why should they buy your product? And this is where you really have to present. Pull your presentation together so it's tough, tight, right? Now, when we talk about the why people buy, I'm always asked the question, well, Victor, what's the best sales approach? There's many different approaches. I'm going to give you what I call the universal sales formula, something I came up with, and it fits. Whether you're B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. Keep this in mind when you're talking to a client. Typically, you want to go through 3 phases with them. And this is my formula that I came up with. It's a very simple formula, right? And here's how it works. When you meet with somebody, don't try to sell them right away. Listen to me. Don't try to sell them right away. The first phase of any sales process is empathy. And people want to know that you know what they're going through. If you're in a B2B business, again, the client wants to know that you understand their business. They want to know that you understand their business. If you're selling B2C, client wants to know that you understand their situation. Again, if we're doing network marketing, they want you to listen to them, understand what they're struggling with. B2B, VPs, CEOs, CXOs want you to understand what they're struggling with. Let's be more specific. If you're talking to a B2B person, typically, let's say at a management level, decision-making level, these folks are concerned with increased revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share. Victor, if you can help me increase revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share, I want to listen to what you have to offer. Great. If I'm talking B2C, what do they want? They want to know that the product or service that you're selling can help them physically, financially, or psychologically. Physically, financially, or psychologically. And you can all tie that. If you can tie your product to either one of those three on the B2C side or the B2B side, then people will listen because you understand their pain. And this is where you move into what I call the second phase. This is the education phase. Because sometimes people don't understand the value of what you're offering. So if you're selling a B2B product, show them how it's going to increase revenue. Be specific. Walk them through it. Show them how it's going to reduce costs. Show them how it's going to expand their market share. Talk about return on investment, total cost of ownership, break-even points. This is what they want to hear. B2C. Again, what do we talk about? Physically, financially, pocket, right? Psychologically. How is this product going to help them? Weight loss. Let's start there. Well, the obvious one is going to help them what? Physically. Will it help them financially? Yes or no? Yeah, because when you're more fit, that's less visits to the hospital or the doctor. That's going to help you financially. But also keep in mind that when you're not physically fit and you're worried, that causes you psychological stress and you can't do your job well. So you can see how not being physically, financially, or psychologically fit can actually impact your business. And again, if you can sell that, you can position it on the B2C side, then you get it. Are you starting to understand? It's not that hard if you understand what I call those levers. So to make it clear, when I talk about these three things, I call these the value trinities. You got two value trinities. I want to highlight these. In the B2B scenario, you got increased revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share. If you're selling B2C, right, how can you help them physically? How can you help them financially? And how can you help them psychologically? That's what they want to know. And if you can tie it to any one of these three or all three, all the better. That's an effective presentation. Now the last part, there was empathy, there was education, and then the third part was empower. Now the empower piece means how do you present the offer? How do you present them the offer? Well, this is interesting, right? Because how do you present an offer? Well, again, there's several ways of doing this. One is, my favorite is you can provide two options. If you give somebody two options, and I always joke about this, if I offered you a burger, a single burger, or a burger with two slices of meat in it, which one will most people choose? If they don't know you, which one are they more likely to choose? If you said the small burger, you're absolutely correct. The majority of people will always choose the smallest one. Why does this matter to you? When you put two offers in front of a client, one's at 1,000, one's at 800, they're going to go for the 800 if they don't know you. Now, how do you get people to buy the 1,000? How do you push them up so they can buy that $1,000 product, right? Here's what you do. You add a what? You're with me. You add a third burger. Now, which one do you think they choose? That's right. If you said the one in the middle, ding, 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 you are correct. Because that's the way the brain works. See, the brain's always trying to reduce risk. So it's going to say, ooh, too big. That's not big enough. Let me go with the one in the middle. When you put an offer in front of your client and you put three options, watch their brain how it works. It's going to go to either side and it's always going to land in the middle. So if you know what you want to sell, always put one higher and one below it, one above it, one below it, and watch them go for the one in the middle. Does it work? Like a dream, like a champ. So again, this is a way of empowering them to make a buying decision without you forcing them. Now, I want to touch on this because let's talk about the where, okay? I want to talk about where do you find your clients? This is where we have to be a little smart. When we talk about marketing, and maybe I should have talked about this sooner, but when we talk about marketing, where do you find these people? Well, let's think about where do you find them? So when I'm looking for clients, you got to ask yourself, what market am I in? So the big one is social media. So let's talk social media. And again, this is not a social media conversation. This is just a social thought conversation. In social media, what I've discovered, and I'm only sharing this with you, is that for my business, I sell sales training. That's all I do. I'm that guy, right? I noticed that LinkedIn and YouTube are big for me. I mean, I'm talking huge. This is where the majority of my business comes from. And what happens is when somebody sees me on LinkedIn, somebody sees me on YouTube, they immediately jump over to my website, right? The Victor Antonio website. And from the website, they either call me or they fill out the contact form. And here's what's interesting. If they find me through social media and they've seen my content online, all my videos, all my graphics, all my whatever I put up online, audios, and my podcast, then they'll go to my website. Why are they going to my website? They're going there for confirmation and clarification. Confirmation, who is this guy? Let me read about him. And then again, that's confirmation, but also clarification. What does he do? What does he offer? And then if this piques their interest, which is why a website's important, so again, make sure your website's up to speed, then they're going to call me or reach out to me. Here's what's interesting. That on average, when people call me, especially when they call me, the call has, I say, about a 90% close rate. That's right. I close about 90%, if not better, of all deals when people call me. Just the way it works. And when they sell the contact form, this is more like an 80% close rate. Maybe if I go down a little bit, 70%, but it's always high. The average close rate across different industries is 40%. I'm way above it. Now, is it because I'm a great salesperson? Kind of. But here's what's really going on, and this is what's important to you, because you don't have to be a great salesperson. You just have to have great content online. Because what's actually happening is the following. Listen carefully, this is important. Because some of you are going to say, well, I'm not a good salesperson. You don't have to be. You just have to be a nice person and be honest and be very knowledgeable about your product. That's all you have to be a good salesperson. Because what's happening today in the market, has been happening, is that when people go online, they go, who is that person? And they see you on LinkedIn or YouTube, they begin to study you. And if you have a product, they begin to look at your product. Then they want to know more about your product, so they go to your website. On your website, they notice you have a couple of videos. Click, click, they watch the videos. Oh, I kind of like that product. Oh, I kind of like that service they're offering. And they get to know you more and more. And typically, people will look at 10 sources of information before deciding to reach out. So think about it. If people look at 10 sources of information before they reach out to you, call, or actually just contact form, that means that they've pretty much made up their mind that they like you or they like what you're offering. All you have to do is be able to get on the phone with them and not screw it up, so to speak. So this is important because this is called preference formation. Preference formation means that people go online to look for content, something they want, something they want to buy. You've done this, right? And what happens? You go and you look online, and then you start finding more information on the person, more information on the product, and you keep looking at the information. You look at reviews. You go to Amazon. You compare that if it's a product. If it's if it's a person selling a coaching services, you look for testimonials. You look for other people. You go look at their videos. You listen to their podcast, and then you find, you know what? I think this is the right person for me. Then they reach out. This is why content creation should be part of your marketing strategy, because it drives your sales close rate. And again, I'm sure other people are going to be talking about that. Now, I'm going to close out with the last thing, okay? By the way, that was the where you find your clients. The last part is, let's get into, and I have about 10 minutes with you, and I want to talk about what I consider, you've done all this stuff right. You know your product. You know who you're selling to, right? You know where to find these people. You know what your messaging is, right? Increase revenue, reduce costs, expand market share if you're B2B. If it's B2C, psychologically, financially, and physically, right? Tie our products and services to those benefits. And then make sure you have some offers ready. 2 options or 3 options. You'll be amazed that you don't need to know a lot of closing techniques. You don't. This is the most amazing thing I tell people. You don't need to know a lot of closing techniques. You just have to be able to have one closing technique. And if you sequence your presentation right, your pitch, you'll see how easy it is. Even if you're a technophobe, even if you're an introvert, you hate technology, you hate selling, I'm telling you, you can do this. So here's what typically happens. When a client contacts us, let's say that the resistance is somewhere there, right? And let's say you're doing a presentation. Let's set up a scenario here. You're doing a B2B presentation. and you're having this presentation, and all of a sudden you have to go, let's say it's a 45-minute presentation, right? It's a 45-minute presentation. And let's say this is one of those situations where you want to close the deal, right? You've already gone through multiple steps. It's time to close the deal. Now, the resistance is always going to be up here. What is our job? Our job is to what? Reduce that resistance within that 45-minute time frame. And if you do it, somewhere here, I call this the buy line. The buy line means that once you can reduce that resistance, which is easy to do, people are more likely to buy. Now, how do you do that? Here's an exercise I want you to do right now. I want you to list out for your product or service, no matter what you sell, take a moment real quick to list out 3 to 5 objections. List out 3 to 5 objections right now. Just give it some thought. First one's going to be price, right? Could be service, could be delivery. You're a new company. We don't know who you are. We're happy with our current supplier, right? Let me think about it. That's another pushback. I need to talk to my committee, or I need to talk to my spouse. What are the common objections that you get? Now, if you've written them down, here's what I've found. You typically have 3 to 5, no more than 7 common objections. That's it. 3, 5 to 7 common objections. The average is about 5, but 3, 5, or 7 common objections. If you can, listen to the phrase, block those objections. In other words, if you can introduce them and knock them down, guess what? You begin to reduce that resistance. I have a program called Blocking Objections, also known as Response Block Selling. Blocking objection or response block selling is all about taking the customer's objections, and before they mention them, you're going to block them. And I walk you through a process with scripts and everything. And all you have to do is, if this is your 45-minute presentation, then this is the symbol I use for blocking objections. What I do is I block the first objection. Let's say the first objection is about price. Well, let's handle that one right away. The second objection might be, you're a new company. We don't know who you are. That might be an objection too. It might be that, as I mentioned already, we're happy with our current supplier. That might be an objection. And I'm telling you right now that if you can create a presentation and block these objections throughout the presentation, you will cross that line. How do I know? Because I've done it. I do it all the time. If you can reduce that resistance, that is true selling. So keep this in mind. Being able to look at the presentation, understand what the objections are going to be, you're going to sell more effectively. But let's go one level deeper on objections. Let's go one level deeper, because this is where I think I shouldn't say everybody, 95% of all the sales training out there is wrong. Because what I'm about to show you is why you're not able to close some deals. And sometimes you walk away like, why not? Does that ever happen to you? You present the argument logically, right? You even have the emotional attachment assigned to it, right? Like, here's why you need this. But then the customer says, you know what, let me think about it. Let me get back to you. And you walk away confused because you're like, I laid that out pretty good for you. I showed you the return on investment. I showed you why it's going to help you physically, financially, psychologically, increase revenue, reduce costs, expand market share, but you still have to think about it. Now, sure, that means you really didn't handle all the objections. That is where you missed it. So here's the analogy I like to give you. And this is going to change how you look at your own personal selling style. Now, again, I want to emphasize, you don't have to be a fast-talking, slick salesperson to sell in today's market. In fact, it was Adam Grant who did a study, and it was highlighted in Daniel Pink's book, Drive. And he said they looked at salespeople that were on the introvert scale over here, introvert here, extrovert here, right? And they then analyzed their monthly and quarterly sales. Who do you think sold the most? Introvert or extrovert? Introvert or extrovert? Here's what they found. They found a curve that looked like this. And what they found is, on a personality scale, the people who were right here in the middle, they weren't introverts, they weren't extroverts, they called them ambiverts. Ambivert, these people sold the most. And it kind of makes sense. If you're an introvert, you're not asking enough questions, you're not engaging, which is never a good thing. But if you're an extrovert, you're talking too much and you're not listening to the client. So the balance is to be able to listen, right? But also be able to express yourself. That is an ambivert. So you don't have to be an extrovert. You just look, if you're an introvert, All you got to do is move here. That's it. Just learn how to talk a little more. If you're an extrovert, you need to learn how to shut up and listen more and move here, okay? So again, I'm trying to remove that objection in your head that you can't sell. You can sell. You can sell. Now, let me give you this visual, and I'm going to end on this. This is a great visual for looking at objections. Now, we've all seen the iceberg, right? That's it. That's the beginning of the iceberg. It's 10% above the water. The other what? 90% is below the water. The 90% is here. Why do a lot of people fail in sales? Here's why. I'm about to reveal it. I'm pulling back the curtain. Here's about to see it, okay? Here's the problem. You've been taught, if you've gone to sales training, you've been taught, look, you got to learn how to sell the features. You got to know how to sell the benefits. Got to know how to sell the advantages of your product over the other product and what the customer is going to gain out of that, right? So sell the feature, sell the benefits, sell the advantage, sell the gain. And when you finish doing that, you explain the feature, you explain the benefits, you explain the advantage, you explain the gain that they're going to get, and the customer still says, you know what, I just need to think about it. So what's happening? What's happening is you're selling above the waterline. You're selling up here. And this is where most people sell. They just sell above the waterline, which is up here. That's what they sell. That's what you've been trained on. But the real resistance is not above the waterline. The real resistance is below. In other words, there's other things holding them back. And the example I like to use all the time is this simple example. Let's say that you got internet service provider right now, right? And let's say that you're paying, I don't know, I'm going to say you're paying $90 for your internet service right now, and I'll say your speeds are 300 megabytes on the download, right? So this is the price. This is the feature, right? Now, what if I come knocking on your door? Knock, knock. Hey, my name is Victor Antonio. I'm with the Victor Antonio Cable Company. We're offering internet service just for you, and we can beat the price. So all of a sudden he comes over here. He says, you know what? Instead of paying $90, what you can do is you could just pay us like $81, right? And then, as far as the megabytes, instead of 300, we can do 330 megabytes. Would you take the deal? Would you take the deal? Think about it. Think about it. Would you change an internet service provider for $9 a month? Would you change it just for 300 megabytes more? Yes or no? The answer is probably what? No. Here's why. Because I just gave you a 10% discount. I just gave you 10% more speed. Why did you take it? If it's all about price, why didn't you take it? Because in your mind, you're thinking about, 1, do I believe them? 2, if I cancel my existing contract, are there fees associated with that? Do I have to turn in the modem? Take some time to actually go turn in the modem. And if I'm switching service providers, that means I have to schedule a time. And because I have to schedule a time, I probably have to take some time off work because nobody else is going to be home. And how do I know it's really going to work? When they say, this right here is the real reason you don't switch. It's not the price. It's not the more capacity. It's the fact that who has to return the modem? Do I have to pay fees? How do I cancel this thing? And, how long is it going to take you to install the new one? And will there be a delay? And is there going to be an interruption of service? In other words, if I got to check emails because I'm a real busy person, how is this going to impact me? So forth and so on. And so what I'm saying to you is when we're blocking objections, again, check out the Sales Velocity Academy. It's a great course. When we're blocking objections, this is guaranteed. You need to talk about features, benefits, advantage, gains. But you really need to address what's below the waterline, what they're not saying. Because if you can direct your presentation to address the things that they're not saying, in other words, you remove these standard objections and then you put the new ones up there, which are the ones below the waterline, as you begin to raise these objections that are there subconsciously, who's going to stay at home? Do I have to switch over? What's it going to cost? What are the fees? What are the contract issues? What are the terms and conditions? If you can address these during the conversation, then all of a sudden you're going to feel that resistance going down. So on that note, I'm almost at 40 minutes, so I'll respect time. Again, my name is Victor Antonio. Check out the Sales Velocity Academy. It's an extensive database of learning sales tools just for you. And so whether you're B2B or B2C, doesn't matter. And again, thank you for your time. Trevor Ott, thank you again for inviting me on the show, and good luck to you all. Go make your money. See ya.